Welcome to the Branding PR Podcast, where we dive deep into the stories and strategies of today's most impactful entrepreneurs, business leaders, and professionals. Whether you're building your brand, scaling your business, or just looking for inspiration, you're in the right place. Welcome to another episode of the Branding PR Podcast, where we unpack the bold moves, big pivots, and behind the scenes moments that shape today's most interesting brands and leaders. I'm your host, Brandi Sims, PR pro, strategist, and your go-to for all things visibility and value. Today's guest has one of the most unexpected brand journeys I've come across. Brian Franklin is the co-founder of Vows Speeches, a company that helps people craft the most meaningful words for some of life's biggest moments, weddings, toasts, ceremonies, and more. But before helping people express their love, he was a successful political consultant working on major races and ballot initiatives. And before that, a professional musician. We're going to dig into all it takes to build a purpose-driven niche brand with staying power and how embracing your own voice, literally and figuratively, can lead to powerful storytelling, big press wins, because we always love a good press win, and long-term success. Brian, welcome to the show.
So great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, well, happy that you could make it and be a part. So let's get started. Starting right in the top right here. What inspired the shift from politics and music to wedding speeches? Was there a single aha moment for you, or was it something else that developed and made Vows and Speeches come to fruition?
I had long since given up the idea of being a professional musician. I think that had run its course when we made the decision to go into the wedding business. I think the number one driving factor, at least initially, was that I wanted to get the hell out of politics. It had soured, as we all have seen in different ways, and it doesn't really even matter what side you're on. This thing was going bad, and you could tell it was going bad, and I just wanted to get the hell out of it. So I had tried a few different ideas, some adjacent to what I had been doing that just didn't take off. And it was COVID. I was looking for something to do that, I had some of the worst clients I had ever worked with before, and I was just miserable. But I was also doing my own podcast, and I had been interviewing a person who did ghostwriting for other people in different ways. And I, having done some speeches and in the wedding side of things for friends and family, I had written some things that people would come to me because they knew that was part of my work in politics. Mm-hmm. And I had officiated a few weddings. So I just started looking into it. And it was one of those aha moments for me where I'm like, this is a huge industry that is grossly underserved. And there are so many examples of poor performances, let's call them, or bad judgment that can affect a wedding. But really, it's, we've all been to weddings and we've all suffered through boring ones. And it doesn't have to be that way. And I just saw, while there were a few people out there doing what we're doing in a different way, I think at a reasonably low level from an industry standpoint, there was no niche and there was no big name out there for this kind of business. And I would go to conferences, my first conferences that I went to, people were like, "What? You're doing what?" And they were really intrigued by it because they knew this was a problem. And so it from an entrepreneurial standpoint, it was very attractive. And I really saw the thing as a niche to be, whether I did it or somebody else did it or a combination of all the above. So that's the short version of it.
Yes. No, I love that. And I love that this business was both deeply personal but also scalable, in that sense.
Absolutely.
So just how did you and your wife come up with the just initial concept of this? And what were those kind of early conversations like when you were just getting started?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting process. I mean, it started really, I had this idea, I did a little bit of research, and at the time the wedding industry was still in disarray. They were congregating on an app that's more or less died down now, but it was called Clubhouse. And Clubhouse was like a repository for for every industry that was kind of on its heels at that moment in COVID, and they would get together. At least the wedding pros, a lot of them, hundreds of them, would get together every single day or so, and they'd have these rooms where they talk about their situation and how they were going to get out of it. And so there was a wedding planning room, and I went in there and I raised my hand, and it's an audio conference room for those people that aren't familiar with it. And so you're asked to come up to the stage and you talk. And I asked the question, what do you guys think of a business that helps people with their wedding speeches? And the moderators were like, add custom vows, and add custom ceremony scripts. And that was when I had that light bulb moment. And while they were talking to the next guest, I went on to GoDaddy and I grabbed vowsandspeeches.com, and I had our designer for our other business make a logo. He did one I loved in about an hour. And then, some stock photography. I wrote up a quick Squarespace site, and suddenly I had this concept for this business. And, my wife, who I was partnered with in the political consulting side of things, and is a very practical person, and but she also kind of trusts my instincts from an entrepreneurial standpoint. I don't know if she should have, but she did. And so I ran the numbers past her. I'm like, look, this is 2.5 million weddings in the United States alone. Most of them have speeches, right? So there's upwards of 8 million or so speeches every year. There are custom vows in about half of them, and there are custom ceremonies. A growing number of weddings, and now predominantly, have friends and family that are officiants, that are internet officiants essentially, or internet ordained, but they don't really know how to write a narrative like this. They don't know how to do what we can do very easily. And so I ran the numbers, and it does, and I just looked at the numbers, and I looked at the number of people doing this with that were out there, and it was practically nil, and that was it. I mean, it was really, it took a little while to figure out how to market it. I mean, that's a whole different conversation, but I think for her, the big thing was about 4 or 5 months later, because we were doing this just kind of poking at it at first.
Yes.
And I think about 4 or 5 months later, I went to a conference in Vegas, like a big industry conference, and she went along with me, and we had our business cards, and we just started talking to people, and it was the reactions that people were having that swayed her. We said this before, but we were walking down the escalator at the end of the conference, and she goes, you've had a lot of cockamamie ideas in the past, but this isn't one of them. And I go, okay, well, let's discuss what that means. Yeah. So we went and got some sushi, and we were like, okay, what are we willing to risk to take this shot? Because this is a big shot, and I'm going to go, I don't do things half-assed. So yeah, that was kind of the genesis of it. And I think it was in part, she wanted to get the hell out of this business too that we were in, but we saw the opportunity, and when you see people's faces and they're saying, "Oh, this is great, I love this," and then it changes you.
Yeah, it makes it so much more worthwhile, right? That when you see the smile on people's faces after going through this process and being able to share this with their loved ones, their family, and their friends, and just experience it for themselves, it makes such a difference. And then you together on this, it's really.
And then you have to go through the process of like, okay, well, what's scalable? How is it scalable? What's the what here is proprietary or not? Mm-hmm. How can you get brand recognition and brand ownership in a business that's like this? Yeah. And the other thing is that the initial reaction of couples wasn't their first reaction was, wait a second, what? You're going to help me write my vows? How is that going to, that's going to make it more personal? And so it took, one of the mistakes that we made out of the gate was like, we're going to help you avoid disasters, or we're going to help you make this, make sure that you don't embarrass yourself or be cringy or things like that. and we didn't realize, I think, initially how much education was needed to explain to people, hey, this is a process in which we get more personal results than you could do yourself, right? And that's not, it's just not as intuitive, so it takes a little bit of time. And that, so that, the things you learn when you start doing it. So
Of course. I
yeah,
feel like that could be said for life and the
yeah,
experiences that you go through.
absolutely.
You gotta do that. You've gotta put your feet to the fire and actually go through the thing that you're trying to achieve to really learn and to really grow from it. So
Yeah,
yeah, no, definitely.
but it was exciting. It was
Yes,
definitely exciting.
yes.
It still is.
Well, was it as exciting as politics though? I'm just kind of curious.
You
Because
know,
politics,
th-
it's a beast in and of itself. And I'm only speaking from, I guess, the publicist standpoint, because I've handled communications campaigns
yeah,
within the political side. And I'm not even going to lie to you, Brian. I dipped a toe in that for like 1 year. And after that, I was like, okay, we're not offering this service anymore. It was a beast. It was a
yeah,
beast. And,
yeah.
and we worked
Campaigns
on both
are.
sides of the fence. And it was hard. It was really hard, but it was definitely a lot more than I expected.
I really likened political consulting and campaigns to a sports team. You go
Yes.
through. It's incredibly seasonal. Nicole and I would make 80% of our income over a 2-year period in the last 6 months before an election.
Wow.
Every 2 years. So there's this burst of activity.
Mhm.
It ramps up slowly, but like the real momentum and activity
Yeah.
of an election happens in the last 6 months of it, and that's where, from a media buying standpoint, that's where the money is spent, and it's fundraising, and then ah,
Yep.
and so
Big push.
um, and it's big push of communications, and it's hectic and it's crazy, and then it stops like on a
Yeah.
dime
Yeah.
on election day, and there's winners and losers, and you could win a campaign of the year, but 3 months later, no one cares because you're moving on to the next thing.
Yep.
And so, it's like winning a championship. It's like, okay, that's great, but now we're going to try and beat you again. And
Yeah.
so, but it was exciting in that sense. I think from the
Yeah.
wedding standpoint, uh, what's exciting is that you have some of the same thing where you have the
Mm.
preparation of the wedding. You're dealing with these couples, and they're the ones that are like going up to their deadline, and they're
Mhm.
the ones that are feeling the most nervous. And what you're doing is making them less nervous. You're giving them
Mhm.
confidence to do it. So that part's exciting. You get some
Yeah.
of that same feedback, but I think the other thing that's just exciting is building something that is relatively unknown. I think it's fair to say that we're among the people that are trailblazing this niche,
Mm.
and um, and that part's fun. I think more than anything, it's just like be, starting something from scratch and watching it develop and grow and get recognition, and it can be frustrating, but it's absolutely exciting.
Yes, 100%, 100%. Well, staying on politics here. So political consulting and weddings seem like they're worlds apart. In many ways they are. But I'm guessing that there's some overlap here. So what skills or mindset would you say from politics carried over into building this brand?
I think anybody that's in PR or in political campaigns or any kind of real crisis communication, that kind of
Mhm.
thing, what you're if you're good at it, you're good at taking a lot of really um, voluminous pieces of information, right? Like you just have this amount of, in this one case, it might be learning the issues relative to a political campaign or learning
Mhm.
their life so that you know how to talk about it. In the case of weddings, it's learning about the relationship, backwards and forwards, and where they were when they started and how they've developed and how it works and why it works and that kind of thing. And or in the case of a speech, what do you love about these people and their relationship, and how does your own relationship with one of or both of them set the stage for what you're going to say? So you're taking all this information and you're finding really um, attractive ways of putting it together for
Yeah.
the listeners, and in the case of the vows, for each other.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one skill, is just being able to take in that kind of stuff and say, okay, here are the here are the main messages. Here's how to order them. Here's how to make it fun or funny. Here's how
Mm-hmm.
to drop it down into a more serious and sweet note and not make it onerous and like creepy or weird, or cringy. And not creepy, it's never creepy, but just cringy. But
Yeah, yeah.
but I think that skill set of being able to disseminate information, that's one thing. I think having a sense of humor and I've been writing dumb jokes for most of my life, as part of, whether it's part of political campaigns in terms of humorous advertisements or just little lines to break up what is a very serious subject matter. I've been doing that stuff most of my careers, and so for me, being able to do that in this setting is just an extension of the previous work.
Yes.
Uh, but yeah, it's. I think also, I when you teach politicians how to talk to audiences, realizing the attention spans of today's audiences in particular, and excuse me, and then you go to weddings and you're teaching people how to talk about love. In
Mm.
either case, you're dealing with an audience that they've got the attention span of a gnat. They're gonna flit off as quickly as they flit in, and so you really need to keep them coming back. And that skill set is the same whether you're talking about global warming or you're talking about someone's love.
Yes, yes. No, I think you're spot on with that. So you've carved out a space in an incredibly emotional and high pressure niche. How do you help clients find their voice, especially when they're feeling overwhelmed, feeling nervous, or unsure of what to say and what's the most appropriate thing to say?
You know, it I don't help them find their voice. I help them find the right words in the right order for them. And
Mm.
I think it's rare that I'm adding language that isn't theirs or something that
Yeah.
they conveyed to me at some level. I might
Mhm.
make it a little prettier. I might make it a little bit more fun.
Mhm.
I think having a sense of the dynamics of the piece of writing that you're dealing with, the ups and downs of it, to keep people's attention, but also just so that it's not dynamically the same tone from start to finish, which can be the case when people write vows. It's serious all the way through, and there's no fun, there's no love of laughter, there's no, there's that kind of thing that
Yeah.
that you need in there to really even accurately describe someone's relationship. A
Mhm.
good relationship has fun in it, and you need to talk about that part of it and make it fun.
Mhm. Oh, yes, yes. Well, I mean, it sounds like, again, storytelling is at the heart of what you do.
Hmm.
So how do you ensure that authenticity while still helping people, I guess, ensure or really
Yeah,
polish
it's
their message, right? Polish their message for their particular audience, those family and friends that are attending something like this.
it's the interview. I mean, I'm recording them. So I'm
Right.
getting their. It's an hour-long interview that might boil down to 2 to 3 minutes of vows, or 3 to 4 minutes of a speech. Okay, we're distilling their voice down to something. It's not me like trying to guess what they're going to do. And so I think for me, it's all about the interview. It's being able to ask them the questions like you're asking of me. Where, tell me more, give me more about that. Let me hear this piece of it. Wait, what was that? And being
Yeah.
able to do those things that honestly you can't get out of a questionnaire and you can't get out of AI yet, at least.
Yeah.
And some of it's just I got to warm them up and say, talk to them about stuff, and then get them to expose how they really feel about the person that they're talking about, or if they're an officiant, how they feel by being the person that was chosen to do this, and give it the reverence, and meet the moment and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
but it's all in the interview, and it's in the client interaction. The writing writes itself if I get the right interview done.
Yes, yes. Hey, this is why interviews are so important and
Hmm.
why they matter. You can get a lot of context and information that is relevant and can help you to achieve your goal, right?
Yeah.
So, speaking of interviews, you've been featured in the New York Times, ABC News, and just won a major award. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So, what has been the key for you to getting that kind of visibility And how have you used PR really to grow awareness about your brand?
It's a great question. I think I've gotten, and some of it has. I have to give credit to my wife here because we talk about what we're doing, and there have been times like with the New York Times where she suggested that I approach the the story a certain way when I'm pitching it, and that was the thing that got us in the Times. And so credit goes to her, but I think a lot of the time it's just me sticking my nose in and saying into whatever discussion I can stick it into,
Yeah.
and say, hey, this is different. Check this out. And I look, I've been in college. I worked for the college paper.
Yeah.
I've worked with the press for decades.
Yeah.
In the
There you
politics
go.
side, half of the time you're begging for attention, the other half of the time you're hoping you don't get it. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
how the press works, and what their role is, and so for me, I was approaching it with that expertise. But I think we have a different story, and it's hard to know which part of your story to focus on sometimes as a brand. Initially, I think coming out of political consulting, that felt very much about me. No one really knew, or my wife, no one really knew the company name that much. They just knew that this guy ran it, and I wanted something that was more of a brand at at first. Uh, I think over time I realized that the wedding industry is very much like the political industry, where it's a relationship business. They know
Yes.
people, they trust people to do the right thing, and
Mhm.
so when they're hiring Vows and Speeches, they're really hiring Brian and Nicole to do it. And so that took a little bit of correction on my part. I think my initial steps were not to do that, to bury my own expertise, not realizing that that was the reason why they were trusting me in the first place. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, hey, you spoke about challenges earlier. And so I want to talk about that a little bit further. What was one moment that really tested you as a founder, and how did you push through it?
Well, we went through it. I mean, we've been through the ringer in these first years. I mean, we've just taking out whatever mistakes that we made, or rookie errors, which everybody has when they start
Yes.
in a new industry. You don't know the people, you don't know who to trust, you don't know who to listen to, you don't know how people make decisions really as with the clientele. You can guess it, but you don't know.
Mhm.
But we also had some real personal challenges. My wife got breast cancer, and we started the business in May of 21. But we really, we were poking at it. We really didn't do much of anything until later on that year. The following year, 22, we were just, we were pushing, investing, trying to drive this thing forward, but it was still very new for people. And it was an election year. We were still working in the political side. So
Mhm.
this was still a part-time job. And just as we got into the last weeks of the election in 22, we found out she had breast cancer.
Oh,
And so,
sorry.
thankfully caught it early, get your mammograms, get your colonoscopies, all that stuff.
Mhm.
Uh, she caught it early. It's still, even anyone that's had it or been exposed to this process, it's a difficult process. Even when you catch it early, it's not, it's not just you go in and you take it out and it's gone.
No.
It's hard. And so she dealt with that. I think it was about 5-6 months of that, and thankfully we knew that she was going to be okay, but there were still problems. And so that was hard, and that also coincided with a very slow period in the wedding industry. December and January are usually really, really slow. So
Mhm.
coming out of January, she's still in treatment, I think, until March, and then in June our best friend died. and
Mm.
and that was like the rest of the year was like just me trying to survive, and
Yeah.
not cry at my desk long enough to talk to people and do my interviews. And
Yeah.
so really, I think coming through that, especially having invested, a decent amount of money to get it started, and I think coming out of that and feeling like we still we still have something here. This is still going well enough to keep pushing and to keep believing in it, and and to get back to it and back to focus. That was a big deal, and I think it was a gut check for both of us. To still is to some degree, and because we didn't have the marketing money we would have liked to push in at this point. We were very, that year was tough and expensive. And so now it's like brute force PR, right? It's like anywhere you can get free media, go get it, right? Go, and that's actually now starting to really pay off. And we're getting business out of these kinds of appearances. We're getting people to trust us because we've been in the relationship business now long enough that we have relationships with people, and so it's starting to congeal. And that you mentioned the award the other day that we got the other day. That was California Wedding Day, which is is the premier luxury magazine in California. They awarded us best statewide product or service, and it was something that was voted on by our peers. That was a big emotional moment for us. And it was really really special, because coming out of those years to feel like you're still, you're still in it, is a great feeling. And I think something that that I'm going to treasure for a while.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, definitely. So sorry to hear that about your
Thankfully,
wife.
she's
And
healthy. Yeah, she's all
yeah,
better now, and it's great.
she's
But
all good now. That's
yeah, yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah,
Thankfully.
yeah. My husband actually, that's what ended his Navy career, was lung cancer.
Oh
So
man.
definitely can relate to you on that.
Yeah,
It is hard. It is tough being a
yeah.
caregiver to someone that's going through that, and just being a support for them.
And just the fear, right? Like just the
Fear.
worries alone can be disabling, and or
Yeah,
slow you, or just slow you down.
yeah,
Even if it doesn't disable you, it's hard to balance all those distractions at once,
yeah.
and be good at it. And so but I hope it's okay now.
Yeah, yeah. No, he's
Yeah,
on the up and
yeah,
up. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
good,
Definitely
good.
on the up and up now. But
Yeah,
yeah, it was definitely a time for sure. Well,
yeah.
with that, the fact that you guys have won this prestigious award more recently, do you feel like that was kind of your, oh man, we're really doing this moment? Or do you have something else that was just like, okay, we're really doing this and this is happening?
Look, I think from a personal level, I couldn't tell you right now if that award will have a big effect on us, other than being able to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I think from a personal standpoint, it was something that was important, because it's hard to it's hard to look at that and say, okay, well, how's the business doing? But the other side of it is that we're doing well. I mean, I think, we've had quarter after quarter growth. It's not where we'd like it to be, because we still have a long way to go, and it still feels like a new business to
Yeah.
us, even though it's 4 years old. Because we weren't doing it full time, because all these things happened,
Yeah.
that it almost feels like a year old to me. And so, but we could show and document the progress that we've made, and we've done, hundreds of clients now, and they're happy. And that's the biggest thing. It's like we're now getting repeat clients. We're now getting, we've got great testimonials and some great video now. And we're just, I think, primed to take this to the level that we wanted to take it right from the beginning.
Yes, yes. Well, what advice would you give to someone that's building a business with their partner? Are there any lessons you've learned from working closely with your spouse?
It's funny. There's a self delusion that every entrepreneur has. You go into it and you go, okay, I'm going to do the calculations. It's in my case, it was like, okay, there's 9.6 million targets, and if we just get X percentage of them, then we'll have a
Yeah.
$17 million business, and all we got to do is get the New York Times, and then everything will explode. And that was a very big part. I mean, that was the part that I think really blew us open,
Mhm.
was that. But I think the advice, from an advice standpoint, that you have to delude yourself into thinking it's going to be that easy. Otherwise, you'll never get into it if you really know
Yeah, yeah,
everything that you're going to go up against. Like you have to just delude yourself a little bit.
yeah.
But um, I think the thing that's different for me is, in both, when I started the political stuff way back when, I was excited about it. I
Yeah.
knew there was an opportunity, because we had a certain angle that at the time was new for them, for the political
Mhm.
industry. And and people, and I had a way of communicating it to them that worked. I think I feel every bit as excited today about this business as I did about that business. And I think it's the excitement and the belief in it that carries you through these things. And I've never believed in anything more than this. I know this is going to work. It's just like in my heart, I know that it's going to continue to build over time. It's it might require times where you really have to gut check and look inside and go, okay, how do I do it? How do I make these decisions? How do I get help if I need it? That kind of thing. But if you've got an idea out there in your head and you just, man, it's just clawing at you all the time, and it makes enough sense to you and your partner or whoever you're doing it with, or whoever's affected by it, then do it. Because when we started this thing, people would look at me like, what? I mean, like, this is people in my family, like, oh, you're leaving a successful career I've never even heard of this thing. And what are you going to, what?
What are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
Where are we going with this?
And I mean, I would get all the positive feedback from the wedding industry, but then the people that were like, oh, you sure? And I pushed right through that stuff. I just like, no, you don't see it. I see this. This is happening this way. You mentioned AI. AI has helped us in some regard because it's so bad at making jokes and and it's so obvious in the AI sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Like, especially when it comes to personal stuff. I mean, marketing copy, rewriting your bio, doing a cover letter, that kind of stuff. It's got that up and down. That's fine. But when it comes to something really personal and has to have your voice and has to be fun and have a dynamic ride to it, it hasn't gotten there yet. It will someday. But again, it's not the writing, it's the interview. And so for us, what we've been able to do is say, hey, look, we don't use AI. We don't have any AI content. This is a higher level offering. You want something handcrafted. You want something personal. You've spent so much money in the rest of your wedding to make it beautiful. Let's do this. And that's our angle. And so to some extent, AI has made it obvious as to why we're doing what we're doing, the way we're doing it.
Yes. I love that you mentioned that too, because we were kind of talking about this offline, and that ChatGPT is really blown up. But as you've kind of explained, just the approach of your brand, it does make such a big difference that there is that realness that you don't get from ChatGPT. Any which way you slice it, you're just not going to get it. You're not going to get that human touch. You're not going to get that human connection in there. And it does make a big difference. I bet in the next couple of years, there'll probably be something, and maybe this is just like me and my hairbrand ideas, that there's going to be more businesses that lean into that too. In that, listen, all authentic here. Like, we didn't use ChatGPT. We didn't use AI to put it. Like, this is someone that sat down, took the information, as we have always done in the past before technology, take the information and make something beautiful with it. Right.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the selling point. I think people are starting to see that for what it is and recognizing, you know what? It does make a difference to have someone actually thoughtfully put something together, this writing, the story together, and as a way to connect with others. Like, there is something very genuine and very beautiful about it. And it does sound, it looks and feels very different than the obvious greetings, sir and madam. Like,
and I think that even if it mastered how to get there in a similar way, there's some people just don't like ultra processed food, right? You're talking about ultra processed communications, and I think, like, I've seen some incredibly beautiful but mass produced like glassware, right? And you see it in Crate and Barrel or wherever you go, and you go, oh, this is a really pretty item that was clearly made in a manufacturing way, versus something that was perhaps just as beautiful, but that was handcrafted by someone who blows glass and does that kind of thing.
Yeah,
It's very and has the imperfections that are human, right?
Mhm.
And human work, that's more special to some people, and they could be equally as beautiful aesthetically, but just knowing that those things came out of a human,
Yes.
I think matters. These are very human moments, and in our opinion, they should have human guidance. So
I love that. I love that. I love the charm. Absolutely. Well, so let's switch gears to
sure,
talking about your legacy.
my
So you've
legacy.
built, yeah, your legacy that you're building, right? And what you want to leave behind. But you've built a brand around helping people say the right words. What do you hope people walk away with after working with you?
I think uh, when they look back on their wedding, if it's the couple that's getting married, I think knowing that they said their vows in a way that made them both happy, and that truly represented what they wanted to say and what they hoped they could convey, even if they didn't know they were going to say these things the way that they did it. I think just knowing that it came from them and in an authentic place, uh, being able to look back. I tell couples they should put it up on their wall. They should put both of their vows on their wall, and that way, when inevitably, not every I don't know of any relationship that doesn't have its moments of difficulty. Then you can go back and look and read those things again, and read what you wrote about them and read what they wrote about you and reference it. And I think that it's a good thing to come back to. Um, I think just feeling that they're not embarrassed by what they did or say, because people do embarrassingly think bad things. Sometimes they get up there, they go too short, they say something wrong, whatever it is. So just that they nailed the moment in a way that they could be proud of, and I think that's the legacy I hope for. Um, I I also look. I'd like to be someday. Um, I'd like to have built this thing to a point where it's it's a business that people really truly know about and respect, and I think we're doing that, but we have a long way to go to get the public aware that this kind of service even exists. And so as we do that, I hope that we can have a great reputation for how we treated it, and what we've delivered, and hopefully I can leave my kids with with a nice lifestyle and some comfort that they can. Hopefully, I'm not leaving them with a mountain of corporate debt, and I've actually given them something that they can use to build their lives and their kids' lives a little bit better with. So, I mean, that's ultimately it.
That's the ultimate goal. Yes, no, for sure. Well, what's next for Vows and Speeches? Any upcoming projects, expansions, or new services that you're excited about?
We've started to help people with their sales presentations
Mhm.
because they're so boring, and I
Oh,
and so that's one piece
we would
of
say you're
business that's
doing the
not.
Lord's work.
Yeah. So I've started to push myself as a speaker, talking a little bit more about how to put some stagecraft in your sales presentations and how to rewrite them so that you're keeping people's attention and keeping things exciting. That's one area of focus that's outside of weddings that we're starting to do. I think as we grow, we may take on more eulogies. I've done a few of them now,
Mm,
mostly for clients or connections, but people that have trusted us to help them through that process, and that's been incredibly rewarding. But it's a tighter timeline. It's a whole new industry that I don't really know very well, but I think has some
mhm,
opportunity for us. Uh, but I think most immediately our focus is just driving people's attention to the fact that this kind of service exists, and that the process itself will make you better at what you want to do. And
mhm,
I think just uh, keeping that stream of PR and advertising, and trying to nail that advertising message, that elusive advertising message that works well but is still affordable. So so yeah, we're still figuring it out.
Yes, and learning along the way, right?
Every day.
Every day. So, my final question for you: what's the best piece of advice you've heard or given when it comes to using your voice, whether it's for business, love, or leadership?
Focus on the emotional needs of your audience. There we talk about Maya Angelou, and people don't remember how what you did uh, or said. It's how you made them feel. But in order to make an audience feel something, you have to think about how you're going to do that and what they want to feel. And some of them are hostile. Some of them get bored very quickly. Some of them will listen to every word but not remember it. And so I think it's really analyzing, from a speaker standpoint, who is your audience? Are they the ones that you're talking to right here? And if it's a portion of them, how do you keep everybody's attention long enough so that this isn't a failure? And recognize when it's working and when it's not. So I think from a voice standpoint, if you're trying to write something, if you're trying to give a presentation, whether it's your vows or some educational thing, it's really put yourself in their shoes. What's going to keep them from going on their phones in this moment? And what do you need to keep doing throughout it to keep their attention? And then get help, because there's always, whether it's us or somebody that that is just good at communications like somebody that can help them find that voice and just get some feedback on what you're doing from someone that you trust can help you refine it.
Yes. Well, this has been such a great conversation, and I've learned so much about you and your journey and where you plan to go with this. And I absolutely love the brand that you've built here, because it's something that's needed. Authenticity. So how can folks get in contact with you if they are seeking your services or want to get some insight
Yeah.
and get your help
Yeah,
for
no, I'd love to
this?
talk to them. Yeah, yeah. The easiest way is to go to vowsandspeeches.com. That's VOWS ANDSPEECHES.com. We're also on Instagram, Vows and Speeches. Uh, Email me. I'm Brian, BRIAN, at vowsandspeeches.com. Happy to talk to you and figure out, we can figure out what you need and how we can help, whether it's a wedding or a celebratory event or something else. So thank you for
Awesome.
having me, though. I really appreciate it. This has been a great conversation. I really
Yes,
enjoyed it.
yes. Well, I'm so happy that you were able to join us, and as always, to our listeners, this is amazing types of conversations that we want you to take and do something with. So please do get in contact with Brian. Learn more about his services at Vows and Speeches. And as always, tune into the Branding PR podcast, available on all streaming platforms. And we'll see you next week.